So today we're going to be talking about the delicate relationship between an empath and a narcissist. If you love this content, please don't forget to click the subscribe button and the notification bell. This way, every time I upload a new video, you, dear one, will be the first to know. So today we're talking about narcissists and empaths, and this is a toxic type of love attraction that I think we need to be aware of. You know, when I was growing up, no one talked about narcissism, no one talked about codependency, no one talked about what it was like to grow up in a dysfunctional home. No one was talking about abandonment trauma. No one was talking about how it felt for a child to grow up and feel invisible. In essence, we were born and we were just kind of like, get out there and do your own thing, kid, and figure it out. And life could be really, really difficult when you don't have someone who allows you to anchor to them, and someone who is wise, and someone who can give you direction, and someone who could pass off or pass on pearls of wisdom. And so I'm really grateful for the opportunity to explore some of these concepts, because I think there's potential to A, help those of us who are middle-aged and over understand what might be going on in relationships that we've been in for 10, 15, 20, 30, and sometimes 40 and 50 years. So there's this sense that we can make sense out of what's happened in our lives, and the how and the what and the why we got involved with the types of people that we got involved with, in addition to who we were when we got involved, and how it is that we could feel like we're so stuck inside of a toxic relationship so many decades later. And I also think that there's great potential in teaching people who are younger to be careful about the types of experiences in the relationships that you can end up in and not even realize it. I think it's important conversations to talk about. These are important concepts to understand, this idea of someone who is highly narcissistic, or this idea of someone who tends to be more highly empathic. So these are important concepts because they can prevent us from having lots of trouble in the future, and they can free us from the toxic relationships that we're in today. So when we're talking about someone who is narcissistic, we're talking about somebody who is self-grandiose. This is someone who has a very, very high opinion of themselves. And oftentimes it's not backed up with facts. So you can be talking to someone who even says that they're an empath, but you know this person and you know that they have cruel language. You know that they're punishing when it comes to their children, or they're absolutely cruel when it comes to their employees. You know that even though that this person that's talking to you thinks that they're highly spiritual, they think that they're highly empathic, you know by their behavior and by their language that they are not what they think they are. So when you're dealing with a narcissist, oftentimes you're dealing with someone who has delusions of grandeur. This is someone who thinks they're awesome, thinks they're kind, thinks they're the most intelligent person in the world, but there's absolutely nothing to back it up. It's absolutely embarrassing when you meet someone who thinks that they're super, super intelligent and they open their mouth and all they do is embarrass themselves. But the interesting thing is that the empath will feel embarrassment for the narcissist, but the narcissist won't feel any embarrassment because the narcissist is convinced that they're right. And if you dare say something to a narcissist, they will bite your head off. They are very good at rationalizing their anger, rationalizing their rage, and whether or not they are aware of the fact that they're being illogical, I guess it depends on the person. I suppose that you could bump into a narcissist who absolutely knows that they're wrong and will do everything to cover it up, and will become vindictive and punishing, and will punish someone, usually their main source of narcissistic supply, for being embarrassed or for thinking that other people thought that they were wrong, or thinking that other people thought that they should have been embarrassed. So if you are a narcissist source of narcissistic supply or main source, you will be the one that's punished for that type of an experience. So a narcissist is someone who needs a lot of attention. When you think about a narcissist, sort of think about a parasite. A parasite needs a host. So a narcissist without someone to blame, without someone to focus on, without someone to convince that this person that they're focused upon needs them. Without that main source of narcissistic supply, the narcissist implodes. So the narcissist needs someone as a main source of narcissistic supply. Someone who has high empathy, someone who understands the narcissist's pain is the perfect target for someone with high narcissistic traits. An empath is someone who believes that if they change themselves, they will be able to heal the narcissist. They are sadly mistaken and can stay locked inside dynamics with the narcissist for a lifetime. You can have a situation where your parent is the narcissist and you think that if you stick it out, if you cater to them, if you spend time with them, if you pay attention to them, even though the rest of your siblings like, I'm tapping out and done, mommy's crazy, daddy's crazy, I'm not putting myself through this anymore, I'm not bringing my kids around here, but you're the one that hangs in there. You're the one that has empathy for mom or empathy for dad, and you falsely presume that if you stick with them, one day they're going to awaken, they're going to thank you, you're going to see their healing, and you're going to feel fulfilled. So an empath is someone who really is driven to help heal other people and almost feels like it's their purpose or their calling to do this type of work. It gets really sticky when it's family, when it's someone that you love, and all of these emotions are involved and all of this future potential is involved because empaths tend to be idealistic. Empaths tend to believe that with enough love and enough compassion, you can heal anybody. And that's just not the case when it comes to someone who is highly narcissistic. There could be neurobiology involved with someone who is a narcissist. There could be physiology obviously involved. And there could be genetics that are involved. It could be the way their brain is formed or has been formed throughout the years, maybe by having a narcissistic parent or growing up in an unpredictable home. There could be brain anomalies that are involved that are never going to be able to be healed through a compassionate heart. Because a narcissist will have this rage, will have this anger, will have this temperament that eventually morphs into a personality trait. And that's it. They're off and running. They're believing the language patterns that are in their head. And their brain and the mind is rationalizing their anger. And they don't even realize that what they're thinking is illogical. It doesn't make sense. And their brain rationalizes why they're angry at you and why you have become their target. They think it's completely justified. You can be the most compassionate, kind person to a narcissist, but behind your back, they're telling their therapist, they're telling their best friend, they're telling whoever will listen that you are selfish, that you are self-centered, and that you're the narcissist. And so there isn't enough compassion in the world that can turn this person's mind around. That person would have to have a come to Jesus moment, or would have to have something happen in their life that they were able to develop enough metacognition to sit and observe their cruel behavior, to sit and observe their illogical thinking. They'd have to develop enough self-awareness to question, am I using rationalization to justify being cruel? Am I moving towards love or away from love? And what rationalizations am I using or relying on to justify why I'm hurting this person who seems to tolerate me on every end? The sad thing about being someone who is highly empathic, and I mean, there are many things, because I think it's a blessing and a curse. Until you awaken as an empath or someone who has high empathy and you say enough is enough, and you really get to a point where you realize that you have been exploited by someone who cannot see you. And that is a very powerful position for an empath to come full circle, because now an empath has learned to flow all their compassion towards themselves. And now we're learning to protect the self. Now we understand that all of these gifts, this compassionate heart, this drive to heal, this drive to inspire, this drive to care, this drive to look beyond the anger and to see the wounds of this person, they're being exploited. and you're actually being abused and absolutely drained in these relationships. And so it helps you really reestablish a sense of self that is rooted more in reality. Empaths will be drained by psychopaths, sociopaths, and narcissists. People who are below the veil of consciousness, acting out the past, they're stuck. If we're talking about the law of attraction, if we're talking about the work of people like Joe Dispenza, we're talking about people who believe the rhetoric, they believe their program. And until they awaken, they're going to live out that program and, like a vacuum, suck people into that reality. And if you have high empathy and you can't see the difference between what is really between reality and your idealizing, your tendency to idealize, then if you can't see the difference in that line, then you're going to get sucked in. However, like I said earlier, the empowered empath is someone who awakens and realizes that all of this compassion that you flow towards someone else really has to first flow towards yourself. Your first line of business should be to love the self. Even the Bible says, love others as you love the self. The Bible doesn't say love others in exception to yourself, love others instead of yourself. It says as yourself. So the love that you want to share with other people, you must learn to flow towards yourself first. Another thing that we have to recognize is that in narcissistic relationships, what will happen is our wounds will be revealed. Our desire to heal, our desire to be heard, our desire to connect will be revealed in this relationship. How is it revealed? Because we never get what we think we're going to get. And we end up feeling frustrated. And one of the major cruxes, or I would say forks in the road for someone who has high empathy, is when you finally throw your hands up in the air and you say, oh my gosh, nothing worked. No matter what I did, no matter how much money I gave this person, no matter how much effort, no matter how much time, no matter how many times I forgave this person, no matter how many times I made excuses for this person, no matter how many hobbies I dropped, no matter how many people I stopped hanging out with, nothing was enough, because a narcissist will continue to move the bar. If you love me, you do this. If you're loyal to me, you do this. Why? Because they are perpetually unhappy. They are the ones who can't figure out how to be comfortable in their own skin. And so they idealize you if it's a romantic relationship. And in time, what will happen is they begin to devalue you. And if you have a lot of empathy, you can stay in this cycle for a really long time. So let's talk about the off-balanced equation that exists between a narcissist and an empath. So a narcissist seeks control, where an empath seeks connection. So a narcissist is looking to control their partner, their parent, their child, their lover, their coworker, whoever. But an empath is looking to connect. So let's say you have a narcissistic boss. This narcissistic boss is looking to devalue you and stay one up on you through fear and intimidation, or maybe they want you to praise them. But what you want is you want to feel connected to your boss. You want to feel understood. You want to feel like your boss gets how hard you work. If this is a parent-child relationship, your parent is trying to control you and dominate you and get you to live a life of servitude to them, to listen to everything that they say, do everything that they want you to do. But you as the child just want to connect to them. It's not going to work. Another equation that is off balance is narcissists seek power, where empaths seek resolution. If you're in a relationship with a narcissist, what you notice is that it's never enough. They're never happy for so long, and if they are, it's a moment of them patronizing you and treating you as if you're their little pet and you've done so good, and they're giving you their praise because you finally realize that you should listen to them. It's very patronizing, their praise, but what you're seeking is resolution. So you're coming at it, your value, your core value is resolution, your core value is connection, but that's not what a narcissist wants, and that's why it's a mismatch. Narcissists seek to manipulate and empaths seek to understand. A narcissist does not possess the core value of looking to understand you. A narcissist wants to manipulate you. So the narcissist has an agenda in their head, whatever it is in the moment. Remember, it's constantly changing. That's why you will feel like you can't see straight, because no matter what you do, the narcissist is changing things. A narcissist says they like red hair, you dye your hair red. Then a narcissist says, you know what, I think women with short hair are sexy. You cut your hair. Then the narcissist the following week will say something like, oh, you know, I don't know why women have such short hair, especially when you meet them. Like, why do women cut their hair? And you'll be spinning your wheels like, what is happening here? So you're going to seek to understand, you're going to seek to please, but the narcissist is seeking to manipulate you and control you. So you don't have core values that are similar. Another equation that's off balance is narcissists seek to exploit your wounds. Now, an empath will honor the wound. So you really have to see that an empath and a narcissist come at relationships from two different angles. The best relationships are with people that have similar core values and have similar goals. So if a narcissist wants to dominate you and an empath wants to only understand you, an empath will want to understand your wounds, then you have to understand that a narcissist is going to exploit the wounds that you share with them. So an empath shares wounds thinking that I'm being honest, I'm being vulnerable, this is my vulnerability. And an empath will believe in the relationship that they're coming at this relationship this way, wholeheartedly, open-hearted, believing that in doing so, it's going to teach or encourage the narcissist to trust them. Because in the back of an empath's mind, the narcissist needs to learn to trust again. However, what an empath does not understand is that a narcissist is just waiting for you to expose your wounds so they can hold them against you, maybe blackmail you, but specifically to exploit the wounds that you've shared. So an empath has to get this straight when it comes to a narcissist, because if you do not, you will share things with someone who will think nothing of sharing it on social media and think nothing of humiliating you and mortifying you. Think of the person that you shared something really super private with and it ends up on the internet. Okay, who does that? You're not supposed to leave a narcissist. You're not supposed to say enough is enough. You're not supposed to see beyond the veil or see beyond the mask. And if you do, the narcissist has to scramble to regain control, and that's through dominance. So don't be shocked. And if you are shocked, well, then maybe it'll help you to understand that these are narcissistic traits. And we have to take what happens in this relationship and use it to our advantage so that we stop going into relationships like babes in the woods. We have to see this as it is and understand that there are predator type personalities out there. There are parasitic relationship dynamics, and we have to encourage ourselves to see things as they are. We have to flow empathy towards people that we have rationally decided and concluded actually have empathy for us. And it could take months before that's proven. And you know what? You can check all the boxes. You could cross all the T's. You can dot all the I's. I've been in a relationship, thank goodness it was a short relationship, but I thought I was so clever. I thought I knew what I was doing. I thought I was waiting. I thought I was investigating. Wrong. I expressed myself to this person. This person ended up hunting me. This was a predator type personality, and I was 100% wrong about this person and thinking that they were vulnerable because the stories that they told me were a lie. I don't know that. It took a while for me to process this concept, but eventually I ended up on the other side of it. And I asked myself, well, how did you get into this relationship again? And the answer was you ignored red flags, and that was true. Empaths have got to stop ignoring red flags. And we've got to really see things clearly, and we've got to understand that this red flag is trying to protect us. Even though we are wired to want to heal this person, we're wired to understand this person, and even though we're wired to dig deep into what makes this person tick because we're seeking connection, and we're hoping that if we can be part of this person's healing, we can ride off into the sunset. We tend to be very fairy tale-ish type people and believe in love. And I don't say don't believe in love. I just say believe in what you're seeing first. Like, take your time, use logic and reason in life. And I think as an empath who adopts these types of ideas, you will eventually find someone who is just as empathic as you are, and you will have an amazing relationship that is built for the long run. So as an empath, these are some of the qualities that you have to really be aware of when you're out and about in the dating world. You tend to be sacrificial. You like to help people. you're very intuitive. You're understanding, you're compassionate, you're helpful, you have this healing presence. You will suppress your needs for the sake of others. And you may associate love with pain. You're a highly, highly intuitive to how other people are feeling. And you feel driven to want to help from the inside out. Now, you're not someone who wants to help and have it lit up in Times Square. You're not someone who wants to help someone and for the praise of it. So your ego is not involved when it comes to helping this other person. Because I believe that there are communal narcissists who are out there and they want to help a lot of people, but it's because of what you're going to say about them on Instagram, or it's about you celebrating them, or it's about you just making a really big deal about what they've done for you. And they want it. They want you to do that. And if you don't celebrate them, if you don't put their gift on Instagram, if you don't share it on Facebook, if you don't tell the world about what they've done for you, then they're angry. They become punitive, punishing. They'll end the relationship with you even. If you do not make a big deal out of what they've done for you, or if a community refuse to see their greatness, then they stop doing their volunteer work. They stop doing what they were doing because they didn't get the payoff that they were looking for. So it's ego gratification. It's look at me, I'm so wonderful, and see how great I am compared to other people. So if you're an empath, you tend to be very generous, but you're not really concerned about who knows what you've done. If you give gifts, you don't tell anybody you gave someone a gift. It's like no one knows about it. It's not until that person actually says, oh, so-and-so sent me a card or sent me a gift and I thought it was so nice of them. It's like, oh, really? No one knows about it. So there's a big difference between an empath and a narcissist when it comes to giving. But I think it's really crucial that anybody out there that has high empathy, if you're somebody who is highly empathic, if you have wounds, if your empathy has been created because of difficult childhood experiences, of feeling invisible, of feeling like you were unable to connect to your parents, which really, dear one, it was your parents' job to attune themselves to you. You came into this time-space reality connected to them. It was really their job to attune themselves to you and your needs. But if you grew up feeling like you couldn't connect, if you grew up feeling like no matter what you did, it wasn't good enough, if you grew up the scapegoat child, even if you grew up feeling like your family just completely abandoned you, or you were put in foster care and you were bounced around from family or to family, if you were adopted out and you felt like alone in this world, like no one understood you, it's really important that you consider how that may have caused you to have such deep empathy from a place of deep wounding. Because what I've learned in my life is that I don't want to treat people the way I was treated. And so I had tremendous empathy for kids who were bullied. And really interesting, I think it's interesting that I was bullied in school, in grammar school, and even in high school, but I shut that down in freshman year. I found my voice in freshman year. But I was bullied all through grammar school up until 8th grade. And I had such a heart for the other kids in school that were getting bullied that I would step in to defend them in a way that was difficult for me to defend myself. Or I would get into fist fights for my brother because I was just like, oh no, you're not going to bully him. It was almost like I could see the pain in someone else's experience, in the experience of observing them, in the perception of watching someone else get bullied. And it activated something inside of me, this protective mechanism, and I was able to act on their behalf. However, I believe that came from a very painful place, and I believe it came from feeling so alone and wishing on some level, vibrational level. I believe that it created some resonance within me, like I wish someone would speak up for me. I wish someone could see my wounds. I wish someone knew how deeply hurt I was. And I think for many empaths, our empathy comes from that deep wounded place. For instance, I have a really difficult time when I think about people who are alone. And I mirror that too, or it reminds me of how alone I felt as a child. And even my whole life, I felt alone in my marriage. And I think that is very poignant, and it's a reflection of how I existed in my marriage. I was still focusing on other people and trying to understand him and trying to connect to him. And I was blinded by the fact that that wasn't coming back. So I was stuck in this perpetual loop. As Joe Dispenza would say, I was really living out the program, and my body had become the program, and I wasn't aware of it. And how interesting it is to have this awakening and to realize that the empathy came from a place of pain, and then to develop the ability and the desire to take care of myself first. And then to decide, wait a minute, I'm not just going to offer this empathy to anyone. I'm going to offer it to people who can flow it back in return. And that's not coming from a selfish place. That's coming from a self-preserving place. That's survival. Because I now recognize that someone who is highly narcissistic will drain me of all of my empathy and all of my kindness, and will dump me when I'm shriveled up and go right off into the sunset with someone else, because this is what happens. And sadly, my mom passed away under the thumb of who I think was a narcissistic person, my father. And it was really, really troubling to witness this dynamic and to watch my mother just fade away more and more and more each day, and to really see it happening in real time. This man who struggled so much with the fact that my mother, towards the end of her life, was the one in need. And up until then, my mother lived a life of servitude, meeting my father's needs. So I've created this session for those of us who are stuck in these dynamics, or who have escaped these dynamics, and who want to understand our empathy a little bit deeper in a way that serves us and prevents us from being drained in toxic love relationships. Namaste, everybody. I hope this has been helpful. Until next time, bye for now. Hey, if you love this content, don't forget to check out the next video, and you can go to my website and take the codependency quiz.